Hey y'all, welcome to the Canary Deployment tutorial. What are we going to do today? We're going to take a prior deployment's files, manifests, and update them to run a Canary deployment. At the end, you can expect to have an understanding of what a Canary deployment is, and have a Canary deployment that you can run yourself. So before we get to the demo and setting that all up, let's cover off on some of that pertinent information. So we'll start off, what is a Canary deployment? Is it just a nice little bird? Now, as simply as possible, a Canary deployment is a rollout of a new release to a smallish subset of users ahead of a more broad release. It lets people test in production. Why do they call it Canary deployment? It's actually pretty awful. Coal miners used to take canaries with them down into the mines to see if there were harmful gases like carbon monoxide. Canaries, the birds, were more sensitive to these, so if they perished, the miners would know they needed to skedaddle. Poor little canaries. But now it's synonymous with testing something early. So how are we going to do this, run a Canary deployment? We're going to do this manually. There are CD tools that help do this in a really slick manner, but we're going to go through the process and talk about how the service looks for labels in order to do this. With this knowledge, it can be applied to other tools of your choice. And I just mentioned CD. You might be like, excuse me, what is CD? Great question. CD can mean either continuous delivery or continuous deployment. Two meanings for one acronym, fun and not at all confusing, right? Let's decode those. Continuous delivery is keeping the code in a deployable state at all times. You probably still need some sort of manual intervention, so someone to actually click a button to deploy it. Continuous deployment is the concept of automating that process of getting it into the hands of real customers. This one's tied really closely to Canary releases because it's going to be something small and getting bigger gradually. I see this a lot more in the space as time goes on as well. Testing and production's huge. So what might this look like in the wild? Well, it could be somewhat of a progressive rollout. So think, something starting hitting 15% of end users, matching some sort of criteria, and then gets rolled out more and more over a certain amount of time, assuming it's hitting certain benchmarks. And if it's not, it would be rolled back. And there's a lot of things you could test with something like this, and it helps just to constantly deliver in a very agile manner. All right, now let's put this thing into practice. Enough with the terms. Time for the demo. We are going to take that deployment demo that we had done before, and we're going to create two different deployments with it, with two different images. So again, to do that, we probably should start by creating some Docker images. Let's create a couple of new images to use. You can see our prior app here. This is our current app. It's as is. It's in production. Let's just call it stable. I am already logged into Docker, you should note, but if you are not and you're watching at home, then go ahead and do Docker login. It's about that time. Let's build this image with a stable tag, and we'll make it really easy to follow. You don't have to use the stable tag to differentiate. In practice, you'll probably be using something like the SHA for your CI to actually tag your images with, but just to make it really easy and explicit and call things out, we're going to use stable tag. So Docker build demo stable in the directory. Let's build this thing. That is built. And let's go ahead and push this up. Okay, so let's make a change. So we are going to be testing out a change, and we'll make it as easy as possible to figure out that it's a canary. So let's do welcome to our Canary page. That's one change. And then let's change this to Canary app. In React, this just changes the tab. Instead of seeing React app, you would see Canary app. Not important, but just want to show some things, make it really clear which ones are being changed. And these are going to be in the README, so don't worry about coming up with the right pieces. I'm going to include all of this there for you. Push this thing up. All right, so we're actually going to use Minikube for the cluster. We need a cluster to deploy to. Let's do this thing locally. I started to think about using Minikube so we can pin versions a bit more explicitly where applicable. I'd like to make sure we're all on the same page and all on the same Kubernetes version here. So we are using Kubernetes version 1.23.3, and I'm going to share the command to get that going, but it's minikube start -- Kubernetes version equals in the version that you want. So here's the version that we're using, and I'll make sure that we can all be on the same page. Let me close that out. We're going to go ahead and start customizing our manifest and adjusting the files, cleaning up a bit. Under the templates, or the Kubernetes templates, I actually created a folder called Canary. It is empty now. What we're going to ultimately customize is this demo prod YAML that we had before. So you can see the deployment and the service both live together in harmony here. We're going to break those out, so have two different deployments, one service ultimately. So let me go and create a couple files. Deployment stable.yaml, and then service.yaml. All right, so I actually have these over here. I'm going to copy and paste some of these in. We're going to start with the service, and I will tell you why. It's up there now. We're starting with the service because nothing's going to change. It's super easy, straightforward, but I'm going to call something out here. So again, we went through this, the selector, looking for app deployment demo, and it's looking for all the deployments that have this. That do have this, and that service is going to load balance across all of those deployments and the pods in those deployments. So that's going to be really important to make sure that both the Canary and the stable have that. That's where it's out there, binoculars looking for. All right, let's go into the stable now. So the main deployment, and we will create this thing. Deployment stable. Okay, so there's quite a bit going on here. I'm just going to run through the relevant pieces. This one is the currently deployed app, tweaked just a bit, but I'm going to call some things out. So I went ahead and changed the name, the metadata name, to be deployment demo stable, and you can see the container name is going to have that as well. So that's one thing, so we can differentiate between the stable and the Canary. You can see the label, I added some metadata. The label, again, app deployment demo, that's in a few places. So you can see the selector here. The things under spec are going to be really important. So the app deployment demo is going to be really important, and the label app deployment demo. It's beaming out, letting this selector from the service, the load balancer, to say, hey, this is me. Make sure you include me in that load balance. And I'm adding in some other metadata. I do have a version here that I commented out. The version can be used in some tools and sometimes it might be important. Now that we're trying to have distinction across different deployments, it could be relevant, but I'm just including it. Commenting out, it just could be included in some tools that you're using, depending on your deployment strategy. And the other big one is the track stable. So you can see the track here in a couple places. It's going to be important to have. This is the metadata. It really could be anything, but it's pretty commonly used. So we're adding it in this convention. Again, could also be the version or something else we use instead, but just making sure I have that here. And the other change is going to be the image. So the deployment demo stable, that was the image that we created, the first one, and that's the one that we're going to be using. One more thing that's important, the replicas. So we're going to note that the replicas, we have 2 replicas here. We could even run to 3, and it's going to be if the other one has 1, that means 3 out of 4 times that it's going to come here. 1's going to be other. So that's actually how you do the deployment and figure out the percentage that you want to roll out to. Is this replica? So that's going to be really important, and we'll talk about that in the other one too. All right, so in the Canary, we'll see a couple differences here. So we named the deployment demo Canary. So that's going to be different. It also has the app deployment demo. The version is 1.0.1, so it's incremented from the previous one. You're canarying a incremented release. Again, we're not using that, but I'm just commenting it out here. And then replicas. So we have 1 replica for this one. So again, 3 to 1, 25% come here. So that's going to be the main delta in terms of how things get distributed. You can see the app deployment demo, again, very important, the selector from the service, looking out for it. Track Canary, again, metadata there. So same thing down here. And then the good old image name, so the Canary tag. So those are the big differences here. Again, almost identical to the stable one above. The huge difference is really this image is different than how often it will be served. So we're going to create a namespace called production, and we're going to put all of this in it. All right, let me pull up a terminal, and these are all saved, and we'll go ahead and apply those. All right, we got a terminal here, so let's create the namespace first. So production is created. So we have both of these here. I put them side by side, so it's a little easier to see what's going on. So you can see the replicas is the big delta there, and let's apply this thing. Created, created, created. Oh, how sweet it is to see that. I'm going to call out a few things in terms of just making sure it's all up and running. Check out the service. So that's the first thing. And I can't spell production. Excellent. So we see deployment demo. That was the service name, if we recall. We kept that, and it's looking for the other deployment demos. The load balancer, external IP, pending. Again, Minikube, you need to make sure you open up the tunnel to expose the load balancer. So let's do, and then open up a new, it's going to ask me for sudo permissions. Great, and that's because port 80 is a privileged port, and that's where it's going. We've got a new terminal. Let's check it out again. And we can see it's on localhost. Very cool. Now let's go ahead and check out the deployments. Here we go. So deployment demo Canary, that deployment that we have up here, you can see it has one replica. That's up here. So you see the one of one. We just need one of those replicas ready to go. And we have that. Deployment demo stable over here, you can see the 3 replicas. So that's what we differentiated there. And the load balancer is looking for the deployment demo. Again, the selector, in the spec for both of them. And for the service, it's going to, lighthouse, getting the binoculars out, looking for anything matching up with that deployment demo for the app. And that's what it's doing. So it's finding those, it's snagging those little things, and balancing the load across that. I wonder why they call it a load balancer. And I'll just show you the pods. And you can see 1 for Canary, 3 for stable. All right, now that we have those up, let's go ahead and pull up our browser and see what we're getting served. I have Chrome over here. We're getting served the welcome to our page. We're getting served the stable version. That's great. And let's go ahead and refresh. And nothing's coming up. Wonder why that could be. Timeout. Let me smash that pause button real quick. Kubernetes doesn't use an actual round robin to decide which deployment or which pod you are served. I have the same cookie. I'm coming from the same place. It'd be pretty jarring to get something new each time, right? So there are a few options that we can also investigate in the future that would help get more control. So like ingress, service mesh, more understanding of IP tables. Maybe we'll do those later. But for now, just know that's why that when I hit refresh all those times, I keep getting served the same site. All right, let's hit play. See how we can actually test this a bit further. So for now, I want some quick validation to see if this is working. This might not be the best Canary. We're going to pull up a few different browsers and migrate onto localhost on all of those. And then statistically speaking, we got to see something different one of the times. But to make it a bit more, shall we say, in our favor, let's change the stable replicas to 1 also. So it's about 50-50. And we should expect to see just one of these things getting changed. Stable would be configured, and then everything else in terms of deployment would have changed. And let's go back here and see where we're getting served. So we're running this same Chrome. Let's hit refresh. Oh, we actually got the Canary app there. That's pretty cool. So the Canary one is up. We got hit with the Canary and then 50/50. And then on the incognito, we are hitting the stable. That made it really easy. Didn't have to open up any other browsers, just the main and the incognito. So coin flip worked out this time. Very, very cool to see. That's it. It's working. So at the core of any Canary release, it's an incremental test of a change being rolled out to a subset of users. We did this in a really simple manner by controlling different deployments, but really that's it. You can feel great about yourself. We just did a Canary release. This is helpful. Please let me know. Also, please let me know if you have any questions or requests in the comments.